You want to stand up? Dr. Tripp is with us in St. Louis. Can you hear me all right? Okay.
I'd like to know what kind of suggestions you have for single women.
Suggestions for single women? Well, I don't think it has any.
I don't have any suggestions for single women. My main suggestions, well, that isn't true. I just thought of one. When people reinvent the kinds of things that I'm suggesting, they often come up with the notion of, oh, well, what you have to do is play hard to get. That's a very crude version of it. A much subtler version would put out the green flag, turn on the green light, and be sure that there's a barrier in the way that the poor devil has to climb. That's the way to really build the voltage.
But doctor, this calls for manipulation. It calls for cat and mouse. It calls for coyness and all the things that got us into trouble in the first place with all this.
Least of all, it calls for manipulation of the other person. Next, it calls for a little manipulation of yourself. And mainly it calls for manipulation of the geometry of the situation. We are born into the world with certain kinds of mammalian patterns and tendencies over which we have no vote. We had better know about these kind of pitfalls and use them.
But your thesis rewards neurosis. Your thesis almost calls for neurotic behavior.
Nonsense.
And in fact, the more neurotic, the more fun it is. That's the dilemma that I think at least we are.
I never heard of such a peculiar definition of neurosis. I'm saying the reverse. Look out for your existing neuroses. You think that the more closeness, the better. Everybody tells you the more communication in a relationship, the better. Oh, your sex life is a little bit tired. It's nice, but it's a little bit tired. After 10 years, what you need is more communication. It's the reverse. You need less communication. You need to wake up in the morning and say things like, the next time I marry, it's going to be somebody that brings me breakfast in bed. The unconscious has no sense of humor, and you reestablish the distance.
Right. All right, now while you're turning this outrageous, in your view, I guess, observation over in your minds, I'll tell you what knocks me out, because I'm having as much trouble as anybody with this. However, in the animal world, there's a lot of chasing and violence and, do you know what I mean? Did you ever...
There sure is.
I mean, they're always running after each other, and it looks like he's never going to find. And in fact, there are a lot of occasions where the male, the male interested in this kind of behavior, has to fight through a whole bunch of other males to get to the female.
And not only, if he doesn't have to fight, he won't be able to get it up. He won't be able to be aroused. Who wants a sure thing? Think of it. Think of it for a minute.
Sir?
I didn't hear you.
I said, are you married? What you're saying almost is that you have to be two different people together, like, you know, you have to be two different people within yourself to make one relationship, and you're placing the sexual relationship as always a good relationship, and if you can't be friends with your boyfriend or your lover or anything...
I'm quite sympathetic to people who say that if you've been with a partner and you're happy with them, it isn't the most important thing in the world. I wouldn't like to see the bedroom drop off the house entirely, but it's not the main thing. I'm just giving you a little warning about the kind of thing that can happen to you.
All right. Okay, we're trying to learn here. Please be brief.
I work with my husband in his office, and I'm with him a lot, and I don't...
It must be boring, then.
Oh, it's just terrible. No, we have a neat relationship. We've been married 13 years, and it's gotten better every year.
Really?
Yeah.
He doesn't drive you crazy?
No, and I don't think I drive him crazy.
All right. You are happy for her, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm very happy for her, but this is the standard fiction, and this is this is something you have to understand. If partners aren't, suppose that's true. Yeah, if it's true, then I will tell you what will not be in that relationship, which will be a delicate intimacy. You can't have the love story dream. We all know what the love story dream is. It's for the ongoing, sexually vivid, delicately intimate, monogamous relationship. It exists like mermaids and perpetual motion and heaven itself in people's imagination. But what you can have is any of those three. You can have all of them without the monogamy, or you can have the monogamy and the sexual vividness. If you don't expect it to be too ongoing, you can even have ongoing if you'll give up the delicacy. But you can't have all of those things, because all of those things will drive you jam together, and where is the spark of sex going to take place?
Here.
Doctor, I respect the work that you sex researchers and sex therapists are doing, but how come there were over 1 million divorces last year? Is it doing any good, or are not enough people going to you, or what is it?
And I want to point out where those divorces were. Most of them were in the first year. Why? Because this is the time when very great closeness short circuits one of the motivations.
Begging the doctor's pardon, it would seem to me that it would be in that first year of anxiously trying to please your mate and, well, I guess not.
Well, the first few months,
in other words,
usually.
It seems to me that we all of us know that couple who is sleepwalking through life. They're familiar with each other. He does the same things every day. He goes to work at the same time, goes home, says the same things. And I think most of us would agree that it's probable, although maybe we feel voyeuristic making the point, it's probable that they're not very happy in an intimate way. And so that seems to support your point, that the more familiar a person becomes with his mate, the more likely it is that the spark's not going to be there.
Please don't read this as bad news now, because just because you have to be careful about distances, this is good news. This is a warning that you need to reestablish those distances. Fortunately, the way we're all able to win, if we know this, is by using symbolic barriers. There are 50 ways to say, "What's your name again?" There are 50 ways to complain with affectionate abuse about the next time you marry.
But that's a contrived thing you're talking about. If I'm understanding your position, these feelings of distance and resentment and anxiety have to be real. They can't be manufactured. And here's what I hear you say.
No. They can be manufactured. People manufacture them all the time.
But we are raised to look for that partner who will be forever faithful to us, understanding, caring.
Yes, you're right. We're led down that particular garden path, and that's
at
why
our
we
side
have so
in
much
peaks and
trouble.
valleys of life. At our side. And you step forward to say, that's not a wonderful fairy tale. That's a nightmare.
Exactly. By the way, I'd like to remind you of Masters and Johnson, whose new book has an absolutely brilliant chapter on fantasy. And what do you think people's sexual fantasies are? Change of partner, change of kind of sex, people watching. There is resistance brought into the scene continually. If the truth were as you have been suggesting, why would people bother with all that? Forced sex, B&D, bondage and discipline. Why is that all over the place? Why does it give people a thrill to think of being watched or being forced? Because it brings urgency, and it brings tension, and it brings distance back into the relationship, which is threatened with too much closeness.
Is this also the possible explanation that people have more fun in an affair than they would in the familiar relationship?
Of course, that's very interesting you bring that up. This French stereotype is the man marries, and his relationship with his wife goes downhill in 5 years. His relationship with his mistress may last 25.
And one of the reasons is because of the tension?
One of the reasons is because the wife he's too close to, and the mistress, he doesn't know what she does on Thursdays and Saturdays. And he can't take her for granted. This is, that little distance that the mistress has keeps the ball rolling.
So how do well, we'll talk. Yeah.
Doctor, I don't know about the rest of the audience, but you have succeeded in confusing me to the point of where I don't know what anything is happening here.
I consider that a mark of great progress.
I got a break here. I got a break. We'll give you a chance to clear this up.
Good. In one sentence.
And we'll be back in St. Louis in just a moment.